everybody, welcome to HFX Gaming Memories. Today we're going to be talking about Bart versus the Space Mutants as well as the Simpsons' early years in general, so stay tuned. Okay, so before we start talking about Bart versus the Space Mutants, let's talk a little bit some of our memories and some of the write-ins I had about The Simpsons. So for me, I think I was in grade 1 or maybe 2 when The Simpsons first kind of came to my attention. So we're talking season 1, season 2. A friend of mine had told me, hey, there's this new cartoon on where they have swearing, which at the time was pretty edgy, not compared to anything now, but it was still cutting edge. It even garnered attention from the first George Bush, who actually wrote to The Simpsons to complain. Sorry, Barbara Bush did, and then Marge sent a rebuttal letter, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, that's their story. My story is that I was told that there was a cartoon with swearing, and on an episode, Binky the Clown from Garfield and Friends' brother, who was a clown, robbed a store. So obviously that was a complete falsity. It was just one of those grade school rumors that you start hearing flying around, but automatically I hear this, swearing, a robbery with one of the characters from Garfield, and I have to check this out. So I started watching The Simpsons and really enjoying it. When Bart vs. the Space Mutants was released in 1991, The Simpsons had only had 2 seasons at this point, and likely had only aired season 1 during the development of the game, which left limited characters to use. While some of the villains from the first season did appear as bosses, which we will show, they didn't have an overarching villain like most cartoons at the time because this wasn't a cartoon. So where did the Space Mutants come from? Well, in the original Tracy Ullman shorts, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie go to see the Happy Little Elves, but sneak in to see the Space Mutants movie. The mutants didn't look like they do in the later episodes. In fact, they looked a little bit more like Bart with tentacles, kind of reminiscent of those 1950s sci-fi movies. It wasn't until season 1, episode 8, The Telltale Head, when Jimbo, Kearney, Dolph, and Bart sneak in to see Revenge of the Space Mutants, that we see them in their form as we know them now. This game took a little bit more liberty with the Space Mutants, changing the look altogether.
The plot to Bart vs. the Space Mutants is pretty straightforward. Space Mutants have landed on Earth with the intention of building an ultimate weapon using a variety of objects around Springfield, and it's up to Bart to stop them. The first level sees them collecting purple objects. Similar to the main character in They Live, Bart has a set of X-ray specs. Putting these on allows Bart to determine if one of Springfield's citizens is actually an alien in disguise. To hide purple objects from the Space Mutants, Bart uses his spray paint to cover them up. There's also a few different ways to get rid of purple objects in Springfield, such as dropping towels over them or using a small ball to knock over a can of paint. Use the wrench on this hydrant, scare this bird away with a cherry bomb, or in some instances, just use a rocket to blow out a window. Items such as the whistle, magnet, and key serve other purposes in this game. For example, the whistle actually is used in the very final window of the Springfield retirement castle to summon Grandpa Simpson, who then throws coins to you. The key is a useful item that allows you to warp back from the Springfield retirement castle to Moe's Tavern. This is good if you've missed any purple objects, but beware, it's a one-way door only. I think most people have really good memories about the first level of this game because it plays out like a Simpsons episode. It's very colorful, and you see some iconic characters. Jimbo shows up during the skateboarding sequence. You see this statue of Jebediah Springfield. The final boss is Nelson. There's a lot of great locations, such as Moe's Tavern, where you can actually make a prank phone call and an enemy with a purple shirt will show up. You can actually shoot the E on the Quickie Mart for 3 free lives in a sound test, and you'll pass the Springfield retirement castle as well as Barney's Bowler. The second level feels more like an afterthought in this game. It takes place at the mall, and your job is to collect hats. There's no spray painting, there's no special weapons. The enemies in this level involve things like marshmallows, donuts, candy canes. Then you go on to another section where you have to avoid shoes, and then the final portion of the level is more of a magic theme. At the end of each stage, you fight the same alien boss who adapts the theme of that stage. The first time, I think he's throwing sugar cubes at you. The second time, you're fighting him while he's in a giant shoe. And then the final stage, you're fighting him as he disappears and throws playing cards at you. Eventually, you make your way to the end of the stage and fight one-time Simpsons villain, the Babysitter Bandit. Level 3 is probably my favorite level in the game. It's when Bart visits the carnival. This time the object is to destroy blue balloons. Remember that magnet that we bought in the first level? Well, this is where you actually get to use it on this carnival game to cheat. Bart actually gets his trusty slingshot in this level to shoot down kids who are throwing cherry bombs at you and pop balloons. From the carnival games to jumping off the high dive in order to ring the bell, level 3 just has a lot of fun things to do. The platforming in this level is a little less challenging than it was in level 2 and is quite rewarding when you actually accomplish it. Even the final boss, Sideshow Bob, is a lot easier to defeat than the Babysitter Bandit was in level 2. It's unfortunate that this wasn't the second stage, as I think a lot of gamers would have enjoyed it. Level 4 is very similar to level 2 in that there's a lot of complicated platforming. I'm not going to review a lot of this level just because it comes up in the memory section of this video. The goal of level 4 is pretty simple: collect exit signs using the dart gun or by reaching them through platforming. Really, there's not much Simpsons reference in this level with the exception of the final boss when you take on Marvin Monroe. It's a very challenging level. Level 5 sees a more iconic return to Springfield's nuclear power plant. In this level, the aliens are trying to get radioactive rods. What's great about this level is the entire Simpsons family shows up. If you throw down donuts, Homer will immediately jump on the floor, eliminating all enemies. Lisa holds the combination to various floors. As Bart can only hold 4 radioactive rods at once before making a deposit in the nuclear reactor, Marge will actually take them, assuming you can catch her in time. This level is a bit of a maze. There's a lot of locked doors. Elevators and staircases can only go to certain floors. There's definitely a lot of backtracking considering you can only hold 4 radioactive rods at once and will have to deposit them frequently. Nonetheless, the level's pretty enjoyable and overall, a nice finish to the game.
In the early 90s, Simpsons merchandise was just starting to take off. It wasn't everywhere like it was to the late 90s, 2000s, and even now. There was only a few items that you can get available. Me personally, I remember the Mattel action figures that had the speech bubble. There were about 5 of them. Never owned them personally, but I always would see them at the store and thought they were pretty cool looking. I did have the purple fanny pack though, and I do wish I still had that because it's going to tie into the gaming story as well. And I did have the Bart Simpson sweatshirt that said "I'm Bart Simpson, who the hell are you?" But I don't think I ever was allowed to wear it to school, but I would wear the pin. It was very small, and that was my way of being rebellious. So while our channel is still pretty new, I don't have a lot of subscribers or viewers writing in to tell me their stories, so I went to friends and I asked them, what do you remember about The Simpsons in the early years, 89 to 91, as well as Bart versus the Space Mutants? I got an overwhelming response of the same 2 answers. Relating to the game was difficulty. So they talked about the relentless difficulty in it, but yet still fun. And we're going to review that as we play some of the game. The second one was how difficult this game was to get your hands on. And you know what? That's my story too. I remember back in, I'll say 1991, the game had just came out. We had one store, Edgemere Cabins, in my neighborhood that rented games. That was close enough for me to go on my bike. So you'd have to get up early as possible, try to get down there, wait in line for the store to open, and hopefully nobody had it rented. It took a few tries, but eventually I got it. When I put the questions out this week, that was the same response I got from other friends going to certain stores in their neighborhood waiting to try to get the game and it being almost impossible to get. I do remember a lot of parents going to Florida during that time period too, because our dollar apparently was still good then, and picking it up for their kids. I was not one of those kids, but again, it wasn't a game I really wanted to own. I just wanted to play it.
In Bart vs. Space Mutants, A serves as jump, but A also serves as the run button. To do a super jump, you need to hit A and B at the same time and press the right direction. This is also complicated because B serves as the use weapons button. Everybody who wrote in talked about the difficulty of the shopping mall jumping stage. Trying to land on these platforms without sliding off was an absolute nightmare as a kid. The lollipops are even harder. You have to land directly in the center of these when they're pointed at the side and make sure you don't make any sudden movement. One mess up and you're going right in the cement. Level 4 starts up with some pretty simple platforming. Tree to tree, making sure you're jumping on alligator to alligator, and at this point you have to jump on the colored blocks. If you do miss, Bart is going to fall through and you'll have to start over again, but it's pretty easy. Once you get to the prehistoric area, things ramp up. Here you actually have to jump into the background, but unless you've played this game a few times, you're not going to know that. Once you've jumped into the background, you have to wait for this rock to come to a specific point in the map. Otherwise, when you make your jump, you'll go right through the rock or miss it completely like I did. This is the part of the game where I would always lose all of my lives. To make these jumps, you have to land directly on the neck of the dinosaur. To make things more difficult, you have these bats that also sort of heat seek. I tried multiple times to hit these bats with the darts, and I still actually don't know if you can hit them or you just have to avoid them altogether. The mini-boss battle requires Bart to jump into the background twice and land on this dinosaur's head. You cannot make repeated jumps on his head. You actually have to jump down and begin all over again. It's really easy to miss the dinosaur when you're making your jump, or actually even miss the jumps into the background. I can't tell you how many times I was able to jump on his head only to bounce off the other side. To make matters worse, you also have to avoid the projectiles he throws at you.
Okay everybody, that's our first video. So here I am a couple weeks later, and I just want to thank you again. It was a really good opportunity to learn how to use some editing software. I've already got a lot of good feedback on how I can improve these videos, and there's a few things myself that I'm not overly happy with that I just need to learn to do better. So where are we going to take our channel from here? Well, it really comes down to those stories. So put your gaming stories in the comments, or you can email me at hfxgamingmemories@gmail.com. Some of the things I have planned for the next few months are going to be things like light guns. Let's look at some video games that maybe have a bad reputation that you either love, or we'll point out the positive points of those games. We're going to look at movie, TV franchises that made great video games, because people tend to look at more the negative ones. So until then, stay safe, keep gaming.